So g'day and welcome to Adelaide Real, a guide to getting your fit together. And today I've got Adelaide Allen. Now, most of you who are in the, the CrossFit world would know who Amanda is because she's an absolute superstar in that field. And to those who don't, check her out and absolutely get on board. And I believe this is correct, Amanda, but it's amandacrossfitallen.com is your website.
Yes.
Yep. So jump on there, jump on and check out Amanda on Facebook because, you know, she's not only a super hard worker and a fantastic athlete, but you wear your heart on your sleeve a fair bit too, don't you? There's absolute honesty that goes out to the world. And it's really refreshing, to be perfectly honest. So,
thank you.
Look, before I ramble on too much, Amanda, and fanboy out a bit too much, thank you for being on the podcast and welcome.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. Wherever we can share that message is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you just going back a bit, and the purpose of this podcast is to help people like me. You know, I fell off the wagon and got really unfit and unwell, and I'm trying to get back into fit and healthy lifestyle. And there's lots of people out there the same. And I know you've had your ups and downs, you know, with your physical health, mental health and that sort of thing. So it can affect everyone. And there's my cat coming in to say hello.
Oh, wait till my puppies hear it.
Will your dogs hear that? So
no, they're asleep.
We're raw and honest here. Just go back a little bit, Amanda, and talk about before CrossFit. What were you doing in that realm?
Like in terms of fitness, or just
fitness,
in terms
health,
of
just I know you've been
general
a triathlete and a kayaker, I think, was it, or canoeist? Or
correct. Look, it's been such a weird journey, and I never ever know where to start. And what I share is usually a little bit different every time because there's so many parts to the puzzle of my life anyway. And you know, it really started with drinking and depression, you know, alcoholic drinking out of school, you know, drank my way out of school, and depression took me out of school very early. And
what sort of age would you have been then, Amanda?
Well, I think I must have been just into year 11, and I didn't finish year 11, left Pembroke.
Yep.
And just went on a journey of drinking and, you know, self-destruction, trying to destroy myself, and in many respects not succeeding, you know, because I'm still here.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a real mystery to me. And, you know, at some point along that very early journey of depression and not knowing that that's what it was, and, you know, living in a state of self-loathing and self-disgust. And I decided to save myself by taking up triathlon. And, of course, that's what all suicidally depressed alcoholic young people do, right? But that just dawned on me as the way to go. And, you know, I ended up almost making the Olympics. And but I drank my way out of that. You know, my history is, you know, up until I got sober was, you know, very high level sporting achievement. I would take up a new sport and try to save myself. But then I drink my way out of that over and over. I took up cycling with a Paralympic cyclist, Sanya Parker. We rode tandem on track and qualified for the Paralympics. I was the pilot on the front of the bike, and we set state and national titles. And I drank my way out of that and abandoned her, and you know, took off to Margaret River where they make a lot of wine. And I got 2 jobs in 2 wineries, 7 days a week, and
just constantly drinking the whole time. And
basically, I was an everyday drunk, hiding it very, very well, and you know, pretending that I was fit and healthy. And you know, really, I was dead on the inside and wanting to be dead on the outside as well.
And before, so with the, you know, leaving school at that age, were you a sporty kid? Were you always involved in sport as a child?
Honestly, that was the only thing that ever made sense to me. The only place I ever fitted. I didn't fit in with people. I didn't understand, you know, the schooling system. I didn't like study. You know, the only thing that made any sense was me moving. And that was the only place I felt some sort of semblance of peace and comfort and meaning in myself. And the other thing that that always made sense to me was writing. Just writing whatever was in me, writing that down. And, you know, they're the 2 things that stay with me today more than anything is my writing and my sport.
They
Isn't
certainly
it
have. Well,
ridiculous? You know.
you've pumped out a few books along the way as well, which we'll touch on later. And look, it is, and it's a culture too, isn't it? You know, I grew up in that sporting culture. I started playing football with the seniors as a 16-year-old, and you were welcomed in, and you were given a beer after the games, even at that age, and you drank, and that's what you did. You know, you wrecked yourself. I never got to the phase where it became out of control, but it could really easily have. And I know some people that it did affect that way. It's something in Australia. I think we use it as a coping mechanism, don't we? That drinking, you know, and we don't have that culture of sharing how we're feeling or going to see someone like maybe the Americans do, of, you know, sharing with a counselor or a psychologist or something. And it can get very tough, can't it? If you've got something that's worrying you and you just bottle it up, you've got to have an escape. And I guess if you're not doing sport, drugs or alcohol or food. I think food is probably where you know, when I stopped playing football, I just kept eating and loved eating. And, you know, if you feel bad about yourself, you eat more. And before you know it, you're nearly 160 kilos.
Correct. Yeah. I look, pretty much, you know, I've got that addictive personality, and not everybody's like that. So for me, I've learned to channel it as a positive thing, because otherwise it's, you know, it's incredibly destructive to myself and, you know, and to those people around me. So yeah, food was a thing, and spending money that I didn't have was a thing. And, you know, as it turns out, you know, drinking was my go-to. You know, there were drugs, but it was never really my preferred drug. You know, my drug of choice was alcohol. And look, I started drinking so young. I didn't know what society said about it. I didn't know where I fitted. It found me, and I found it, and it made sense in me. I just felt better in myself, and I never stopped. And, you know, I do have alcoholism in my family, so I was predisposed.
Right.
But just because there's alcoholism in my family doesn't mean it was going to hit me. But you know, the planets aligned, and you know, we found each other, and I didn't get sober till I was 34, and I left a path of, you know, incredible devastation and destruction. And you know, I've done a lot of work on that, and made a lot of amends, and learned so much that I've been able to apply in you know, my life today, and you know, and getting through the tough stuff, and becoming, you know, 3-time world champion in CrossFit.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's and is that something where you had to approach it formally through a program, or is it? Yeah.
So Alcoholics Anonymous, it found me, and I found it as well. And I don't know about the anonymous part anymore. Like, I was terrified that anybody would find out in the beginning, mortified. And you know, but I did 2 meetings a day. I did rehab. I did a meeting a day for 5-6 years minimum, right? And I'm 14 years sober now, I think, just over.
Brilliant.
And you know, and that program worked for me. And I, you know, they call it like the gift of desperation. And I was broken. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and ready to be open to the answers and that were available in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's not for the faint-hearted. And you know, it truly is a gift, that gift of desperation, to be willing to do the work to get well. And I held on for dear life, because up until that point I just wanted to die, and I just couldn't, you know. So for whatever reason, you know, I'm still here, and that program has worked like utter miracles in my life. I used to want to live with integrity. I used to act against my own will, you know, and think against my own will, and now I can act with integrity on a daily basis, and I have a foundation for being able to do that. That's solid, no matter what is thrown at me.
So it's given you the tools, hasn't it? It's given you the tools to cope with them, and obviously being active and sporty and healthy taps into that as well. That's got to help. It's got to help being able to, you know. You mentioned that addictive personality, and there's plenty of examples. You know, I don't know if you know Rich Roll, the Rich Roll podcast. He's a ultra endurance athlete, but he was an alcoholic too, and he just said transferring that energy into something positive made a massive change, because it's still energy, isn't it? You can be negative or positive. Yeah,
it's so true. And you know, that's it. It's a double-edged sword. You know, that sensitivity, that alcoholism, that depressiveness, that addictiveness. Like, I channel it into CrossFit, and I channel it into my writing, and I channel it into my health as well. It was just so misdirected prior. So I do have tools, and what that's allowed me to do is give back so much and to achieve so much. And the beauty of both of those things is it's an example to others that it's not over until you say it's over, and then it's not over just because those obstacles seem so impossible and ominous and bleak that it is entirely up to us, and there is always hope. And I always say that those ugliest gifts, those ones where like me with my surgery being cut open and all things look like they were lost, those ugliest gifts have the most precious with the ugliest wrapping, have the most precious gift on the inside. You've just got to hang around long enough and hold on to hope, and keep turning up for that, that gift to reveal itself.
And that's very hard though, isn't it, for some people? And it is, whether you, and especially if you're trying to do it on your own. I think one thing I loved about CrossFit, and I'm not back doing it yet because I just want to get to a point where I feel a bit better within my body to be able to cope with it. Now, whether that's the right attitude or not, but that's how I'm looking at it. But that sense of community, so whether it's a CrossFit gym or a sporting club, I think you need to tap into that sort of thing, don't you? Because you can only get so far on your own.
Yeah. Look, we're all better in connection with others. Like we are, that's how we're built, to be isolated is, is a slow death, and it doesn't matter what field you apply that, principle to. So we need to be supported and inspired and shown the way and reassured and, just to laugh with other people. And, there's always someone who's, less well off or less evolved or, on a, the earlier stage of a journey than you. And there's always someone way ahead. So, that you're not ever alone.
You can
and it is important.
Yeah, you can tap into that resource. And even though CrossFit, what you're doing is a very individual pursuit, when you're an individual athlete, you've got your community up at Byron Bay within the gym you're seeing every day, you're helping, you're working with each other, you're coaching people. But the same did that occur with your triathlons? That's a very lonely thing. Was that a more individual sport than, say, CrossFit?
Look, I mean, triathlon days I was either drinking or, performing at the highest level. So it's a pretty confused time, and I was definitely an isolator, and I'm still quite an introvert.
Yeah.
So, I prefer to be with my dogs and be away from people most of the time. But for me to be involved in any kind of sport means that I'm active and I'm around people and I understand the way to be in the world in that environment, in that context. So I can't really compare. I still... I can't compare CrossFit to triathlon simply because I feel so connected to. I think CrossFit community is remarkable in the way it is so connected and so supportive, and on so many levels, people are truly aspiring to be better than they were yesterday. Whether that's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, nutritionally, you name it, and it doesn't matter what age or stage you're at. That support is remarkable, and I haven't found that in another sport. So whether that's true for triathlon or not, I don't know.
You're in a different place.
I personally was just in a very different place, and maybe that's what people get from things like triathlon. And don't know. I don't know.
But
it was a strange time.
But being a bit of a introvert, as you say, a little bit shy. How do you cope with being Amanda Allen? You go somewhere like the CrossFit Games or the regionals, and very well known and super popular. How do you cope with that?
Oh, do you know what? I mean, it's such a weird thing, isn't it? Like most of the, say 90% of the time, if I can just be in my own little world, in my own bubble with my puppies and my training and my routines, my time at the beach and, my sleep routine and, all of that downtime, then those times where I get to go to regionals or the games or be present in the public eye, like it's a real privilege and a real gift because, I can reach out on social media and be really plugged into the world while still being in my safe place at home. So, I get to give my gifts. And so those times where, I get to go to the games and regionals and people reach back to me, like it's a privilege. That's what I get to give now. I get to give back. And people who are coming to me are giving me, like they're giving to me more than I'm giving to them. And, that's how I see it. But it does, look, it's taken me a month to get over the games, coming back from this last games. And that's what it takes out of me. It takes so much from the introvert that I am, out of my comfort zone, out of my routines, away from my dogs and my own bed and my own safety.
Yeah.
So, it does take its toll, but, make no mistake, to me, it's the greatest privilege and joy that people take something from what I've got to offer. And that's the gift of the journey. And I'm pretty sure that's why I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, look, because it's and I've said this to people because we used to train at CrossFit Mode and you in there training, and we'd go in and do our training. And then on the way out, we'd say, she's still going. She's still like, what the hell? And you'd probably been there for 3 hours already. But it's really mental toughness is as much as the physical stuff with this sport, isn't it? You've got to be mentally tough.
Well, and that's what CrossFit breeds. It puts us in a very uncomfortable place. And I think every WOD is like going to your own death at your own hand. And there's no other animal on the planet that knowingly does that. So it does, it requires that we build incredible depth of character and character traits that allow us to start to accommodate and understand and work through and turn up to suffering. Because really, CrossFit is suffering. When we've got to be, a strange creatures to want to do it. And yet the benefits are just untold, and they carry over into every area of your life. And, I love what I see it doing for women, especially. So empowering, in the way you hold your body, and, that you can scream out loud and swear and, get sweaty and be strong, and that carries over into other areas of our lives, whether it's personal relationships or, work space. Like, it's remarkable. And I don't know any other sport that does that.
Yeah. Because you're not seen as an oddity, are you? Within being strong and fit, historically is not something that women have, been in the sporting or considered to be. Obviously, they've been super tough and fit and all that sort of stuff without doubt. But CrossFit's been great for that, body image and all those sorts of things as well. It's, you can be big and strong and healthy.
And look, it's such a strange thing. I know society's strange like that, but it's never been a thought on my mind as a woman, whether I'm strong or skinny or, what my body shape, but it was always about being well. And how I look is just, like the flow on from what I needed to do to be well. So, I celebrate that, but it is a strange position that society has, about women's bodies, and it's, it's defined by what's on magazines. And I just find it so odd, that you have, the biggest thigh gap in the world and the skinniest legs, and that's, that's what we all aspire to. But to me, that just seems like, like physical weakness that must be reflecting, mental, emotional, physical weakness, but not weakness so much, but as that lack of power and strength. Like, it's keeping women, I don't know, suppressed and underdeveloped in all other areas, and we just see it on the physical plane. And I just love CrossFit for what it is. It's just transforming society's perspective, and I just fucking love it. I love being strong. I love being vital. I love picking up heavy things and watching other women do that as well. And I train with my guys at the gym, do a lot of classes a week because I do all the programming here, and I throw down with any guy in the place all the time, whether I can beat them or not. I don't care. It's just on, and it's fun. And what a medium for women, for us to operate in. Like, where else does that exist?
Yeah. Well, my wife and daughter are still there over with Kev Slater at his gym now.
Awesome.
And they love Kev, and I really love the work he's doing with them over there. So you've been pretty much full on with CrossFit since about 2010, 2011?
Yeah, it was right at the end of 2010 that I took up CrossFit, and made the game 6 months later as an individual female. So I was 41 when I plonked, arrived at my first games in Carson, 2011. And that was actually off the back of trying to make the Olympics in high kneeling canoeing, because I just discovered that sport, and it was, finally they'd allowed women to have a spot at the Olympics, because they believed prior to that women were the fairer sex, and it would damage their uteruses if they did high kneeling canoeing, was it safe? So,
How the hell?
Right.
How
So
the hell?
I took that up, and I didn't make the World Championships that year. I missed out by a spot, and that's when I decided to do the Open. I'd just taken up a little bit of CrossFit so I could get strong, and
Yep.
had no idea what it was. It
Yep.
just had no mirrors and no air conditioning, and I liked that.
Yep.
And the rest is history. I think this is coming up to 9 years now.
So
that I've been doing
9
this sport.
years, and you've made the games 5 times.
No, that was my 6 games.
6 games.
My 6 games, 5 regionals, 6 games, 4 medals at the games, 3 gold, 1 bronze.
Effort. Not a bad
Yeah,
effort.
and I did my 1,000-kilometer run for suicide and mental illness in 2016, and still ended up at the games. I came second to last that year because I was 2 weeks off the end of my 1,000-kilometer run, which I did in June, and then was at the.
And that was in Queensland, wasn't it? That was from Toowoomba
to Mackay, yeah.
Mackay.
So the highest rates of suicide and mental illness in the country through that area.
Wow. How long did it take you to get there, to do the run?
Hey, puppies. 31 days. I did about 31, 32 kilometres a day for 31 or 32 days.
And did you, I guess along this whole journey, you've obviously learned a lot about yourself, but what did you learn during that period?
Oh, you know what I learned, and it's what I've known for a long time, is that and it was the way, I think it was very symbolic, this run, of how I've coped with, mental illness like depression and suicidal depression, is I keep turning up and I take the next step. That was it. Yeah. Every day, if I'm running 5-6 hours, like I just took the next step. I broke it down into 5-kilometer lots, and I just kept turning up. And actually, I don't know if it's a inspiring or depressing thought, but I had a lot of pain, like a lot of blisters, and I had horrendous hemorrhoids, which we all love to talk about, right? Yeah. But that pain of my existence during that run almost became my meditation.
Wow.
And it's a really weird concept, but I think that's been true for me throughout most of my life, that, I've learned to live with pain, whether it's emotional or physical, through turning up and really being present to it. Yeah. And I think all my years of drinking was running away from it, and since then has been really turning up no matter what. So that was it. Just keep turning up, and keep turning up meant take that next step. Like the next thing to turn up and do was take the next step, and then complete that next 5 kilometers. So really, all I did in my mind for that whole month of June was run 5 kilometers. That's all I did. Yeah. But I did it repeatedly over and over and over. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a real, so for, going back to the theme of the podcast, when you're going from being unhealthy, morbidly obese, and you need to embrace the pain, but it's not like I'm going to go out tomorrow and attempt to do that run, but it's a little, you got to put it down to little bite-sized chunks, don't you?
Yeah. The principles remain the same. And honestly, it doesn't matter what you do and what you're trying to overcome or to achieve, is turning up. Like, break it down, turn up, do the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And it can be the babyest steps. Like I always talk about the 1%. Yeah. Like, just do the next 1%, and then the next, and then the next. And each day, each hour, each minute, you just do that. Yeah. And you know what? If it fails, start again in the next minute or the next hour, you know, and we fail. And that's the thing, is like, just be willing to fail over and over and over again, but then turn up again, and that's how it works. That's how it's always worked for me. I can't tell you, on the levels I've failed so badly, and but I just kept turning up. And that's not easy, like, it's simple, right? But it's not easy. Yeah. But that's the, that's a miracle cure everybody wants. Everyone goes to the doctor and they want a tablet, or they want, want a quick fix. But I tell you, the answer that you're truly looking for is in turning up, turning up, and just doing the next best thing, and then turning up and repeating that. And, not beating yourself up for not being perfect, because there's not a soul on the planet who is, and who hasn't failed over and over and over again. Yeah. Every champion you look at, or anybody you aspire to emulate at any level, like, they've failed so many times, but they've just kept turning up no matter what.
And that's a big part of that, is knowing your why, isn't it? Why am I turning up? What gets me out of bed today?
Yeah. And for me, mine has always been, even when I was suffering through alcoholism and depression was I just wanted to be well. You know, I just couldn't understand. I couldn't understand why I wasn't well or what was wrong with me. And I just kept looking. You know, I read every self-help book, every nutrition book, like everything, every kind of therapy you could name. I've probably tried it or embarked on it. I was just looking to be well, and I want to be well more than anything. And like the dark side of that is I never want to go back to the hell that I lived in on a daily basis. And but the beauty of that is it's remarkable, the experience of health and well-being and energy and vitality that's available to us. But the problem today is that there's so few examples of that kicking around, because we're so, you know, broken down by sitting at desks and working jobs we don't love, and, you know, having too many things that we have to work to pay for, you know, and you know, and commercial after commercial. I don't watch commercial television. I don't remember the last time I watched commercial TV or listened to commercial radio. It's probably well over 10 years ago now. So I don't know what I'm, you know, supposed to buy or have or be like. I just am.
And I love that attitude of yours where you said that before you were a massive consumer.
No,
and you've gone through this journey. Really, you've done the 180.
Oh my gosh!
You're not, because I've only ever seen you in a pair of shorts or a pair of tights and a singlet.
Pretty much me. Yeah. Lucky I found Byron Bay. I really belong here. I'm just barefoot and very simple. But truly, I had a huge house in Dulwich, so a really affluent suburb in Adelaide, and it was 5 bedrooms. It was myself and Pepper, my dog, a big pool, a huge rumpus room, like it was ridiculous. It was full of the finest furniture. I had so many, you know, clothes, designer clothes, more shoes and handbags and shit that I knew what to do with. And I went from that probably 7 years ago to literally, I forget to bring my thongs when I go to the hospital to have a checkup, you know, like I had to do recently. I'm like, fuck, I forgot, you know, like I've got no thongs. I walk barefoot everywhere. I'm with my dogs. You know, I've gotten rid of so many clothes. I have so few now, and I don't want all those worldly possessions because they, you know, they're a sentence. They're a life sentence. They're, you know, everything that I have and I want, I already have. It's at the beach and it's with my dogs and it's in this gym. And honestly, I keep joking that I just need one of those coasters and I could just go off with my dogs and that would be that.
Because that's another addiction, isn't it? That consumer, you can be addicted to spending and keeping up with the Joneses and all that sort of stuff. And it's
for me, it was filling a void, desperately filling a void that I couldn't fill inside, that I just felt so worth less.
Yeah.
So the more things worth a lot that I could acquire, the momentary, you know, worth I would feel, but it was momentary, and I could never feel that void inside of me. It was so big and so dark and so voracious, you know. I
got
just
that little boost of dopamine when you bought.
Briefly. Yeah. And the hunt, and like I feel a little bit sick if I think sometimes it's still an old habit in me. I feel a little bit flat, and this old thing kicks in, like, if you just go and buy a nice something, you'll feel better. And it's like, and then I think about it and I know that I wouldn't. And you know, I used to do that with food as well. Go to the bakery, get one of those, you know, creamy, sugary Berliner buns or whatever, and that will make me feel better. And it would for a second, but it's like hard drugs. I would drop into instant depression afterwards. And, you know, I don't have those highs and those lows anymore, which isn't to say I don't have highs and lows, because I still do, because I live on the planet. And, you know, I'm always striving to be well or better or something.
And that's, I think, what you're saying there, and what you showing people, it's self-awareness, isn't it? It's being aware that that's something that could kick in, and it's something that I potentially could lean on in the past, but now I've got other coping mechanisms. And from my point of view, I'm the same. You know, if something didn't go right at work or whatever, you go to the Dulwich Bakery and you get the donuts and, you know, apple slice and all this sort of stuff. And you're right, it doesn't feels good. You're shoving it down the hole, but it doesn't feel good for very long.
No, not at all. And I always think of it, you know, my depression or the way I used to eat or the way I used to shop and spend. And, it's like it's like being in some huge bamboo jungle, right? Like, and it's just a well-worn path, and you always go down that same one, because otherwise it's just like this wall of bamboo, thick bamboo.
Yeah.
There's no other paths. And like, when you start to hack a new path, like, it's exhausting. Self-awareness is exhausting and painful. And as you still, you work to hack that new path, like, you'll often go back to the old path, but you can still go back and start hacking away at the new one. And eventually, for me, it's like 2 decades later, I have this amazing new path in this bamboo jungle. And, but, that old path, it's still growing over, but it's still there. Like, it whispers and it's an option,
Yeah.
That's how I look at it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of explaining it. And I guess, to the people that are listening that want to make a change, what you're saying is a why is obviously really important, but just get up and do something every day. And it's not about having to go for become a marathon runner or become an ultra triathlete or a CrossFit champion. It's just doing something, isn't it? Just doing something, get yourself moving.
Yeah. Look, and honestly, I crawled my way out of the hellhole that was my life, the eating and the drinking and the depression and all of those behaviors that were so destructive. Like, I crawled day after day, and it's not glorious, it's just not. It's not what you see on TV. It's not. And that's so confusing. Like, somebody's got to tell you it's not easy and it's not glorious, but it sure as hell is worth it. It's so worth it. Nobody can tell you how deeply important and worthwhile that journey is.
Yeah.
But I think you do tend to do it alone and unsure and, really white knuckling, which doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means it's not necessarily easy, but it sure is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So just from a more practical point of view, and I know obviously you're the CrossFit queen, but if someone came to you and said, Amanda, look, I'm really struggling, not necessarily mental health wise, but for me, the mental health, and I've never been diagnosed with depression or anything like that, and I don't claim to know what that's like, but I know that I didn't feel great when I'd get in my car and 2 of my buttons would pop on my shirt. On my way to an appointment, you don't feel good about yourself when you, bloody, I've got to go and buy a shirt, I've got to go home and change, and because of my fat guts. Where would you start them off? What advice?
Look, I do this is what I do all the time. This is my joyful work is helping people navigate that, no matter where you're starting from. You could be starting from exactly what you're describing, or somebody who wants to, make CrossFit Games, whatever. But, start with the simple things. It's like, well, how much sleep are you getting? And when are you getting that sleep? And like, how much fluid are you drinking? And what is the water that you're drinking, if you're even drinking any? And mostly is people are chronically dehydrated and aren't getting nearly enough sleep, so they're extremely tired. Those 2 things alone, start there. Before you do another thing. Like, it couldn't be more simple. Exercise is important, but where are the stresses in your life? Like, how stressful is your life, and what are you doing to navigate the stress so you can start to bring some peace and quiet? And most people would like poo meditation, but meditation is many, many things. And even for me in the gym, like, wall balls can be a meditation. So accessing an opportunity to find stillness, like 3 things. And guess what? They're all free. They didn't cost you a cent. You didn't go and spend hundreds of dollars on the next diet craze or tablets or whatever. Sleep, hydration, and meditation. Unbelievable.
And you don't need an Apple Watch or a pair of Nike sneakers for those, do you?
And nobody's making any money off of that. So it's probably why it's such a well-kept secret. But, for me, when things start to go a little pear-shaped, sleep is the first thing I look at, and I reel in immediately. If I'm flat, like, and I've been doing that since the Games, because I withdrew from my bank account of health and well-being so heavily that I go back to extra sleep, no matter what. Like, priorities. That's probably one of the other things is, where are your priorities and values, and how are your actions on a daily basis actually aligning with them? And 9 times out of 10, either people's priorities are all out of whack, and what priorities are in order they're not living by, not even close. Their life looks nothing like their priorities and values. So, again, there's another one. It's profoundly powerful, and it's free. And and all of those things. we have to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the hard thing, because it's not a tablet.
Yeah. And look, the really refreshing thing because I've interviewed lots of people, and I've had, Commando Steve and Get Fit Guy from America and all these people. And the great thing about it is they've all been really giving the same sort of advice as you, that keep it simple. It's really easy to get carried away with, as you say, the next big fad or the next big program, but you've got to keep it simple and know why you're doing it, and just one little step at a time. And I think that's just, and it probably gets repetitive with 20 odd episodes now, and it gets repetitive for people that are listening, but that's why it works, isn't it? It's not glamorous.
No.
You're not going to be Insta famous doing it, are you? You just got to chip away.
No. And you won't find it on TV commercials, and it won't be down the shops, and it is taking responsibility, and it is simple. But obviously it's not easy. And yet it is, but it's just establishing that new pattern of behavior and taking responsibility and doing that consistently, even if you don't do it perfectly. Don't have to be perfect. Just keep
that's
trying.
right, because your bad habits will slowly, as you say, with that path, your bad habits will slowly go to the back, and you're good at the better habits that you're forming will come to the fore. And that'll, in 3 months or whatever amount of time, you've made massive change. And you don't always see it.
And the personal struggle, I always think it's like, it's not fail or succeed, it's kind of hide and seek. It's like, oh, there it is, oh, there it went, oh, there it is, oh, I got it, that, oh, it's gone again. It's like constantly looking for how to be well and how to learn to get healthy and establish new habits.
Brilliant. So if anyone who doesn't know you, and I'm sure there's a couple of people out there that don't, where would they find you online? And you, as you say, you've got programs, etc., that people can tap into. Where would they find that stuff?
Look, I'm amandacrossfitallens.com, I'm pretty sure. And I'm also on Instagram as Amanda CrossFit Allen, strangely enough. Yeah. Right. Probably they're the best two places.
Easy to find. And just finishing up, because I know you've probably got a class ready to go or something, but nutrition, there's all this information out there about nutrition. Now, I've gone plant-based. For me, that's working really well. I've dropped over 20 kilos, feeling strong. But what sort of advice do you give people with their nutrition?
Oh, look, I mean, everybody's different. Everyone's a different beast. And so I always like to talk to people about where they're at and where they want to go and what, what's working, what's not, or, I mean, it's so different. And my journey's been multifaceted on the nutrition path as well. I was vegetarian for many years, and I've never been sicker. But that's not to say that vegetarianism doesn't work. It's just that the way I did it and when I did it and who I am and how I am doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like, I eat a lot of meat. I eat red meat every day, and I eat protein, like meat proteins twice a day. And then I just eat green vegetables, truckloads of green vegetables. And, and I think the principles though remain sound no matter what, is like eliminate processed foods. All processed foods gone, totally gone. Green vegetables cannot go wrong. The more, the better. Hydration, quality water, and clean proteins, whichever variety you like. No dairy, no wheat, for me, no grains and no legumes. Legumes don't agree with me at all.
Right.
But it's coming to know who and what you are and what works for you. And some of that's trial and error, some of that's principles. But health is the most important thing to me. Like, weight and performance comes second.
Yeah.
But the way I eat, I mean, I'm radiant with health and the ability to heal and form and turn up. And there's a lot of self-knowledge required. And look, there's a lot of misinformation, so much misinformation out there. But the simpler, the better. The cleaner, the better. The less processed, and the better. And
being self-aware again, isn't it? Because you've developed that over 15, 20 years. It's not the case that, you've done the same thing for that time. You've got to work out what works for you. And again, I was a big meat eater, lots of bread, all that sort of stuff. And I could put on weight, just looking at a loaf of bread. But now that I've cut all that stuff out, it hasn't been dramatic weight loss, but it's been consistent and I'm not fit. My aches and pains are starting to go. So for me, it's working. But as you say, you've got to find what works for you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I really love the sort of paleo ketogenic type diet, but I also found as a female and as a pretty heavily training athlete, I also need carbs, but the carbs I eat are appropriate carbs appropriately.
Yeah.
And for each individual, that's different. But I think the quality of a carbohydrate is important, clean and, not processed again.
Yeah. Did you try to eat organic as much as possible, or you?
I used to, but I think I gave myself so much stress that it negated the quality, the value of organic foods. That I do the best I can. I make wise choices around which foods are better to be free range or grass fed or organic. So it's not black and white. Wouldn't that be simple? It was all just black and white.
I know. Why can't it? Can't it be so easy?
No.
And just quickly, I know you've had a massive sort of 18 months. You've had a health scare, and that to me is amazing that you've actually. And I've seen the photos of that scar right down your tummy. Can you touch on that just really quickly? What that was and what the process, there.
So I think it's almost 8 months ago now. I was rushed into emergency twice in 1 week, and with abdominal pain beyond any morphine's ability to stop it, and twice in 1 week. And then they thought I had ovarian cancer, and then I think about a week later I was in having surgery, and the biopsy indicated that it wasn't cancer, but a very, very rare fibroid tumor that had sort of spread right through my torso. So 4 kilos of tumors removed, cut right up the middle of me, from basically my pelvis right up to my diaphragm. And
because it looked like the photo you had looked like you had a little baby in there, didn't like it was.
I did, right? I looked like I had swallowed some soccer balls.
It was unbelievable.
And it was uncomfortable, but, I don't know, just battled on.
Just kept going.
Right.
Is that when mental toughness can maybe...
I think that may just be pure denial. And I'm very well practiced in that from my past. We're not perfect, but, my healing journey from that has been ridiculous, that I've turned up to the CrossFit Games 7 months later and won, that I even qualified, that I was even able to pick up a barbell, and complete the Open, the CrossFit Open over 5 weeks, less than 2 months out of surgery is unheard of. I honestly thought my CrossFit life was probably over, and my abdominal wall would never work again. And, I've done things that I've never done in CrossFit in the last year. Achieved goals that were like those, what are they, like, great white fucking hopes in the sky that I never thought I would achieve, and I did. And that's it since surgery. So, like, honestly, but all of the years of work that I've done mentally, emotionally, nutritionally, all of that pulled me through and saw me recover like nothing you could ever imagine. And that's the message that I really want to share with people. It's so much is possible, but we have to put the right conditions in place, and our bodies are healing machines, mentally and emotionally, physically, spiritually. We have extraordinary capacity, and it's giving your body the context to explore that and to celebrate it and to be an living expression.
And give your body the opportunity, by putting the right food in there, giving the right exercise. Because I know, look, you're a massive inspiration to a lot of people, and I've interviewed Sharon McCauley. Sharon from here in Adelaide, and she loves what you're doing, and obviously you've been an inspiration to her and people like her. And where to now for Amanda? Are you going to go back and smash the games again next year? Now, probably not.
I'm just going to try and unplug my headphones. Hang on a sec.
Yep.
Can you speak? Can I speak to you now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry, I think my battery was going to die.
That's all right.
To games, I don't know. I honestly, I'm 4 weeks out. I don't know how I feel about what next, but I've done this block before. I've been around the block a few times, and after games is extremely confusing and unclear, and I almost like I've soiled myself. Like, what was it all about? Third world, first world problems and achievements, and what did it all mean? And I don't know. I really don't know, but I know that I turn up and I start training because that's what I need to do to be well, and that's the foundation of me eating well and thinking well and feeling well. And that's where I get to offer inspiration to others, and everything comes from that. So I just start the journey again, which is my journey of being well. That's it.
Yeah. And are you moving up? Would you move up in an age bracket next year, or are you still in the?
Nah, I'm still quite young. I just turned 48, so I'm a baby. So I've got two. Well, really depends. I've got at least one more year, 49, in this age group. And up until this year, I wasn't excited about becoming 50 at the CrossFit Games, because I jokingly say, well, you go from being a badass to doing, jumping pull-ups at the games, but they've turned the tables on that. The 60-year-olds are doing ring muscle-ups now, and that is the most inspiring, extraordinary development. Yeah.
I looked at, it'll be 70-year-olds next as CrossFit grows and people like you come through the ranks. It'll be unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I don't really know what comes next. I know, I just do what my heart tells me. And, a couple of years ago, it told me I needed to run 1,000 kilometers to raise awareness for suicide and mental illness. So, I literally, my heart is the boss. So I just keep doing what makes it happy and what it tells me to do. So I don't know what that will be. But I have CrossFit RMA and I have my... Sorry?
You're living a healthy lifestyle, and this is your life. So, if it takes you off somewhere, it'll be hopefully in a healthy direction.
Yeah. And look, anything's possible with that foundation. Absolutely anything. So I'll just keep turning up and sharing that journey.
Awesome.
And that's probably the most important thing I can do, is keep sharing whatever's going on for me, because so many people reach back and just let me know. And I need to know that too. I need to know that, what little I do makes a difference to somebody.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be more important than much else in my life.
Well, look, it's incredible. And look, just since starting this podcast and posting stuff on Facebook and that sort of thing, you get feedback from people about, I've started going out walking, I've started changing my diet, and it's on a much smaller scale than what you experienced, but it's bloody fantastic to hear that. It's great,
Yeah, it's the same journey for all of us. Just because it looks a bit different in different contexts, that's just kind of the steak knives. But we all struggle. We're all striving. We're all a little bit confused, and wanting to find a better place. And I think we all just want health and peace ultimately.
Yep, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. And I'm sure I might hit up the Boulder Stones and see if I can head up there one weekend.
That place is gorgeous.
I bet it is. And pop in and check you out and say g'day, because we always love just saying g'day to you in the gym and just seeing you work. And I must say this, I haven't said it before, you and James, like the two games athletes that I've met, but I have a background in elite football and sport, and I've never seen anyone train harder than you guys. So well done. Fantastic.
Yeah, we're cut from the same cloth, James and I, that's for sure.
Unbelievable. Well, have a great day, Amanda. And this will be up on iTunes later today. So if you get a chance, have a look at it, and I'll send you the link.
Absolutely. I'll share it all around, and best wishes with your podcast. It's great what you're doing. And
brilliant.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Amanda. Talk to you later.
Take care. Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye.